Hi everybody, this is episode 34 I think. It's a running joke that I always get those, like I'm always one before or one after.
Right, okay,
I
yeah.
never check and I just guess. I think
Didn't you do this for the last one with Phil as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I got that wrong. I'm so I'm with Jonny Grant, amazing screenwriter, writer of all kinds of wonderful things actually.
Amazing.
He could write anything. But he's chosen films, and I thought it'd be interesting. So we did a podcast before. We talked all about kind of the production process on The Dare, which is out now, available in every HMV up and down the country by the looks of things.
Yeah, every HMV and Asda and Morrison's.
As the Tesco, I got my copy from Tesco, and on the PlayStation Store, which we're going to watch because it's in HD on the PlayStation Store. And I forgot the DVDs weren't HD.
Yes, that was disappointing. There is a Blu-ray coming out. There's a Blu-ray out in Europe, and there's a Blu-ray coming out in America. We just don't know when.
Cool. Should put this on as the commentary.
Yeah, I actually went down to London to record a commentary with Bart, Julian, and Giles. And then Giles, they've done another commentary, which, for one reason or another, didn't make it onto the DVD, and I think it was timing. I don't think it wasn't anything to do with they didn't like it. I just think it was a timing issue. They needed to get it out. So yeah, hopefully if the UK release a Blu-ray, those two will be on, and cool. Why not put this one on?
Yeah. So yeah, we're in my house. I've just got a new house, which I'm excited about, but equally I don't know what's going on with the studio because of lockdown. Because today it's the 3rd of November. We're about to go into lockdown in a couple of days. So so we're in my house, nice and comfy, and we're going to watch The Dare. So I'm going to hit play on The Dare. We're going to talk all about it. Probably forget about what's on the telly and just go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Talk about the elections, Brexit, coronavirus.
Because people aren't tired of those things.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I thought they'd want to hear about. You know what? There was like 2 Radio Lab episodes, which is a podcast I listened to, and back to back about the presidential election. And I was like, don't it. I was like, I can't.
It's exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah. So we thought I thought I'd pick Johnny's brains and ask him all about all the scenes on The Dare. So I'm gonna hit play on it.
I haven't got my glasses, like I said, so if I am squinting, that's why.
Well, there's no subtitles, I don't think, and hopefully the audio doesn't spill too much, so I don't get done for copyright by Lionsgate. The film is starting.
They're really cool about all this kind of stuff.
3, no, yeah.
Is that the title screen? Oh no, I was like, what's that?
I think that's just the PlayStation.
Oh right.
So the film is on now. I'm going to check those settings though. Why is it saying it? Oh, there we go. Now it's in HD.
You know, I was desperate to have a film with like something like Lionsgate or Universal, and then when I got the DVD, I didn't watch it, and I've just seen it there. So
yeah, that is really cool to have that Lionsgate at the start.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I've not watched this since I saw it in the cinema.
Right, cool.
I was going to watch it at the weekend on Halloween because it made sense, and then I was like, no, I'll save it.
Yeah, you do right not, and then waiting because you just get sick of it.
But then I equally thought, well, actually, we might, it probably isn't going to be like an analysis of it, so I could have done with freshening up on it.
Yeah, it's alright.
Well.
Jupiter Lights, just a quick thing there. Julian Kostov, who runs Jupiter Lights, was the producer on The Dare. He is the manager of Maria, I'll say her name wrong, Borat's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hot topic at the minute.
So he's over the moon. She's number 1 on IMDb, number 1 trending star, and massive. She's from Bulgaria. He knows her really well.
Yeah, because Boyana Studios is in Bulgaria.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this didn't exist in the first cut of the movie. It was a stag do.
Yeah.
And I went to Giles after watching the first cut and said, I just don't think it works with Jay being such a dick, for the lack of a better word. Like, he was just like a lad on a stag do, and he didn't have a family. He didn't not knew about. He didn't even meet his wife or anything.
Yeah.
His wife to be. So you really didn't care about him at all, even less than you do now. To be fair, at all. So I think we need to give him some daughters or some young kids and a wife, and see him with his family. So we actually at least feel some empathy towards him when he's trapped in the basement.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think quite good if my dogs are around and Woody's making that
Yeah.
noise. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe he doesn't like scary films, but it's interesting that like quite good of Giles, the director, to then take that on board and go, yeah, actually, I agree with that. And
Giles is really good at that. In terms of, he just wants the best for the project, and I think he wouldn't, if he didn't agree, he'd have said, and that would have been that. But it was a shame because we wasted an entire day shooting. Which the day that I was there, actually, it was freezing cold.
Filming the stag do.
So
Right.
it might make it onto, and a lot of Giles's mates were in that as well, so they'd have been a bit miffed probably. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it'll make like sort of cut scenes on the director's cut or something.
Yeah.
But
That'd be quite cool.
I think we really needed to see, and if there's going to be a sequel, then this certainly helps establishing his family life in the first act.
Yeah.
And I think one thing Giles and I wanted to do was have your allegiances torn between whether you liked, you wanted to root for Jay or you wanted to root for Dominic.
Yeah.
So it was certainly purely rooting for Dominic, which was problematic actually. Actually, just that bit there where that's Deborah, who's also one of Maria Bakalova's best friends. Deborah there, she's drinking a bit of wine, but in one of the early cuts of the film, she had a tablet and a glass of wine. I think the idea was that she was not having a great time with Jay, and it was a bit. We didn't need it. So
yeah.
And when she later is found on the floor unconscious, it looked like she'd had an overdose.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So we cut that. We cut the tablet taking out.
Yeah, it's interesting how things can present like film language, and things present themselves like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly. You watch it back and you're like, it's so hard sometimes to preempt that and know that
until you see it.
Yeah,
it's like when you write scripts and you're like, oh, I didn't see the forest for the trees there, and it's even more so when you watch it and you're like, how did I not see that on paper?
Yeah.
Lena always says that this is just me, based on me and her, because I'm constantly like, Lena, where's my keys? Lena, where's that book? And it probably is it's just our life. This.
I leave the house 5 times before I actually leave the house.
Yeah, I think it's just a male thing, mate.
Yeah.
To be fair, maybe I don't know. I'm just using that as an excuse. I think you can overegg the pudding in dialogue here, if you're not careful, and say too much.
Yeah.
Him going, where are you? I'll find you, and all this kind of stuff. I think certainly less is more, dialogue-wise in these scenes. I wanted to play on the why you're going up the stairs when I was writing this, because it's always like, well, why is the character in a horror movie going up the stairs? Well, he heard his daughter screaming upstairs, so of course he...
Yeah.
That was a wind effect, I think.
It's Lottie's biggest pet peeve, that the person going upstairs to run away from the serial killer when it's obviously handed to escape.
Yeah. So I just thought it was more proactive for him to go up the stairs if he heard his daughter crying. Of course he would go upstairs. I thought the girls were great, to be fair.
Yeah.
The idea here was that we would have thought this was Credence, which was actually not named in the movie as Credence, but Richard Brake's character.
Right.
Or at least that was the intention.
By keeping him like a hooded figure as well, you can...
Yeah.
I guess you can toy with that, can't you? That's much nicer than the original thing you showed me that it was going to be the title screen.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
I think it's I don't know if it's just because it's my world, but fonts are the biggest pain in the ass and of anything.
Oh yeah, they can be the difference between something looking cheap.
Yeah.
This here, Jay or Bart. This was another reshoot. A mix between reshoots and recutting actually, because there was just too much. It didn't have enough pathos. Jay didn't act scared enough, and that was something that Bart picked up when he watched the first cut. He said, "I can give you more than that."
Right.
So he really tried a lot harder to get out of there and that really hurt him, I think, when he slammed on his back there. But the original one, it was kind of like, oh, here I am. This is a shame. And Bart did a really good job of acting more terrified.
Yeah. Because you would freak out.
Yeah, of course you would. When he says my kid's there, obviously in the first cut he didn't have kids, so we had to reshoot. That was one thing, like if you're going to change the beginning, you have to change everything else.
Yeah,
which would be, and if I'm honest, there'd be a lot of parts, but I think, you know, you would always want to change as much things as possible, but there was time and money constraints.
Yeah, and it's that, you know, the epitome of the creative process. Like, when is it finished? When is it done? You know what I mean?
It's awful.
And given like the option of reshoots, you're right. You could go back and go look at the fucking Snyder cut, which is happening of just.
I know,
whatever.
exactly.
I mean,
you know, me and Giles could rewrite this, shoot it again, and we'd be happy with it. But then we'd probably want to do it again and again and again. And sometimes you just have to let it go.
The kid, I think the kid was great.
Mitch,
that's it. Yeah. He was good. He's nice as well at the.
Yeah, he's a really canny guy. Was he 4 years old? That 4 years gap between 12 and 16 or whatever is just massive.
It's a big gap, that, isn't it? Yeah. But I always like with child actors, I'm like.
It's so hard to find.
Yeah.
He was funny on set. We really kind of like bonded, me and him on set, and he was just hilarious. Like he'd be playing Grand Theft Auto on his phone, and then he'd go and do this scene where he's like getting fed like raw pig meat and crying and being abused, and then he'd come back and he'd just pick his phone up and like, I'd be like, "You all right?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, are you? What time's lunch?" He's just a talented kid.
Yeah.
That he could just switch it on and off. Richard Brake said in a podcast recently that he felt like he had to up his game after he seen him act.
Really?
Which is obviously like high praise.
Yeah.
I think that the lighting on this, when we watched it in the cinema when we were in Cineworld, and when we watched it in Miami as well, I just felt it was way too dark on the grading. And I don't know if that's been fixed for the Lionsgate release or whatever, but it seems to be a lot better.
Well,
I haven't actually watched it either since we saw it at the Cineworld, so it just seems to be, I don't know if it's your TV settings or could be anything, but it certainly seems like the grading and the colour scheme's better.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Actually, it feels crisper, doesn't it?
It was a lot darker in the cinema both times. It might just be the DCP or whatever they sent to the cinema.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's what it was kind of originally shot on. If that lends itself better to like a digital format.
Probably.
Potentially. I don't know. What cinematographer, remind me of his name?
Andy.
Yeah. He'd know more. Because I was going to say about that shot with Richard Brake there feeding him the pig's meat. It was really interesting that there's this like white outline behind him, but his face is still lit up. That's really hard to do. It's really hard to capture.
Oh, Andy's a bit of a genius with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There was a lot more scenes of this nature, and it's frustrating actually because when I've listened to some sort of review podcasts and stuff, they've said that they wish there was more of this because it's more interesting, but
and that kind of relationship between them.
Yeah, and there was a lot more. Some of it shot, some of it not, but a lot of like sort of bonding, twisted bonding between these two that developed their relationship and could have done a whole sort of drama about it, really.
You could do a prequel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like kind of take that. I mean, it might probably be over.
But this is kind of a prequel in itself as well, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Because the idea was this was on the same timeline as what's going on in the basement. Because we don't say otherwise.
Yeah. Well, that's up until kind of like the big reveals and things like that. I found that kind of watching it in the cinema, thinking like how are these two stories going to intertwine, and
I think Richard Brake was perfect casting.
Yeah, I mean he's a great.
He's creepy as. It's horrendous, isn't he? In the best way. Such a nice guy as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was he like on set?
Just a lovely guy. Just the most sort of gentle, like, softly spoken, calming character you could possibly meet. You can't even imagine him getting like annoyed, and then he goes on here and he's just like...
Yeah. He's been in the business for so long.
Yeah.
Like...
And he's worked with some like big directors.
Yeah.
This guy here is Giles's brother-in-law.
The bleeding guy.
Yeah, Paul. Oh, he's called Dan in real life.
Was he already an actor by trade? Or
I don't think he is an actor. No, he's into like MMA like you are.
All right, okay.
Dan Schultzman.
Because he's in shape, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Where were you? When you were taken?
Parking lot after 9.
See, I wrote flashback scenes for each of these when they say where they were when they were taken, and
Cut to that.
whether we needed them or not, I don't know. But there was a lot more backstory for all of these characters that was then we decided not to go with it because, to be fair, to Giles and the team, they only had 18 days, which is just crazy. Short amount of time.
Yeah.
Crazy, like.
Back to back, no weekends off.
Yeah.
It's mad that.
Giles was exhausted. He said on an interview recently that he sort of drove himself crazy, had nightmares for weeks. He didn't sleep either, so he'd be up like sketching out shots and making notes till like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then we'd be on set at 6. It was just like he was just knackered. And I think one thing he said is that he wouldn't be as intense on the next.
You need.
It was freezing as well. I've written the Dare 2, or we've written the Dare 2 to be entirely indoors.
All right.
I would have set it in Ibiza if I could.
Yeah,
Maybe like the Dare 3 Dom does Ibiza.
I'm going to write a film in Hawaii or something.
Yeah, that's the idea.
That's what Adam Sandler does, isn't it?
That's who? Sorry?
Adam Sandler does that now, apparently. He just picks like a setting that he wants to go to. That's a great
idea.
He did a shitty Netflix film with Jennifer Aniston on a boat.
Yeah, I actually remember
that. Was just purely written based on location.
Can't fault him.
Like, I want to go there and I want to be on a boat. So
yeah, well that's it. I'm going to do that.
Exactly,
so that scene there actually where Jay's sort of looking at the wall, that's sort of juxtaposed against that scene again. And where's he going there? You can hear them in the basement. That was the idea.
Right.
And I think, there was some dialogue over that which we cut, thankfully, because it just didn't sound very good.
Yeah.
It was like ADR. Sometimes ADR just sounds too obvious.
I can't quite figure out when sometimes I pick up ADR and I'm like, why am I noticing that? You know what I mean? Like,
usually when you can't see the actor's face, I assume it's ADR.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case, but...
Like, 70% of films are ADR now, really.
Yeah. That was a CGI shot of the blood coming out.
Yeah. It works well, though. That's not... I presume?
No. This was this scene here where Dom's staring at the pigs' heads. I went down to little did I know about. Well, I thought I was tired at the time, but now I think, God, this has happened so many times since River was born. But when Casey had to go out at 3 a.m. or something, I was knackered, and I went down and let him out, and I just looked at the clock and I was like delirious, and then that idea came into my head of Dom staring at and it was kind of influenced from in my head by The Shining as well, when Jack Nicholson's kind of staring out the window.
Yeah, with that kind of grimace.
And again, like that, I hope that the assumption would be that that's Richard Brake, which is what he was feeding.
Yeah.
It's funny because Giles is like a huge vegan, so all of this stuff.
Not even cooked. No thanks. I'm vegan.
Of course, by vegan you mean fucked.
I meant to ask Giles actually if he was in this position, would he have actually eaten the meat? Probably not.
I think most people wouldn't have to start with. I think, and then
maybe after a week.
Yeah. Just eat anything.
Captain Tofu. That's your future right there.
Captain Tofu.
Best thing I've ever written. Captain Tofu. that line was lifted directly from The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that at first. Because it was at first, and I said, right, that sounds too much like Joker in The Dark Knight, and changed the script to something else. And Julian put it back in.
Right.
Because it's like one of his favourite movies, and he was like, no, we need to nod to the Joker. And I was like, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
So I had to change that, and then Julian put it back.
I quite liked it, and it's in the trailer, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny because in the trailer it made me like, I didn't click at first. It made me smile a little bit, and I was like, why do I like that line so much? And I just didn't think about it, so it might have had a positive effect
maybe
in the trailer. Who cut the trailer? Do you know, or was it just an outside company? Or?
It was the trailer people who made the trailer for It Follows. That's all I know.
Right.
I should be able to sort of give them a shout out, but I can't remember.
It is just an interesting world of cutting trailers. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. That bit there with the nail. Lister watched it with Nat the other day, and she messaged saying, Lister had messaged saying, Nat hates you for that finger. And I was like, oh my god, you haven't seen nothing.
It is particularly gruesome.
Yeah, it's not nice. It's sort of relatable as well, isn't it? More relatable than the rest, I suppose.
But even the rest of it, I mean, was it like you could do a lot of the horrible things that happen. You can do them in a way where you don't necessarily have to show them on screen in such a brutal way. Was that like joint decision? Was that something Giles really wanted to do?
Show them? Well, actually, we showed this. There's a cut that was much more violent than this. That was the sort of the NC-17 in America cut.
Yeah.
And the censors said that if you want it to be a rated R movie, I mean it's an 18 here. You're going to have to cut away from more, so it was more brutal. You saw more things, but at the same time, like you don't need to because your imagination puts together the pieces.
Yeah.
But when we submitted the NC-17 version to Popcorn Frights in Miami, and they loved it, and then when we showed the watered down version at the actual festival, because that was the one that the studio sent, they were all like, "What the hell? Where's the brutal version gone?"
No way.
And then when we told the audience after, they were like, there's a more brutal version. I think Giles would probably like to get that director's cut. Honestly, it's so sick. But I think one thing that I will say is that I think the violence is visceral in that it's not like, we watched like Uncle Peckerhead the other day, which is awesome, but there's a scene that's like a Mortal Kombat, like finish him scene where...
Right.
It's someone's spleen coming out and blood spraying because it's a comedy horror.
Right.
And I don't think the violence in this goes down comedy horror.
No.
I think it goes down, oh Jesus.
Yeah. And it's funny because like saying that I was conscious of people perhaps thinking that it's like shocking for shocking's sake. And but at no point does it feel like that. You know what I mean? It's...
No, I don't think so. But obviously some people are less squeamish than others. I think it was to really hammer home how Dominic feels, I suppose, because if you didn't show it, then you wouldn't have the payoff of what happened to him.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was here on set for this getting filmed, and it was just sort of like a masterclass in acting from Richard Brake. It was just pretty hair raising actually to be on set and watch him do this. The way that the way that he kind of lean forward and how slow he is and methodical, and this was the scene where little Mitch was just in and out of character just like that multiple times though.
Yeah.
But the whole of the crew were sort of silent, obviously watching this on this massive soundstage. It was amazing, kind of watching the master at work there.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
I don't know.
I always wanted to write a chess scene into a script because I wanted it to kind of be symbolic of the game that was played later on by Dominic.
Right.
I think I got the original idea from something similar happening in The Wire. I think one of the kids in The Wire's he's explaining the game of sort of life and life on the streets through chess.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. It's
Remember?
been a long time since I watched The Wire, but...
Not that I'm comparing this to The Wire, obviously. It's like, I'll never do that. I'm just saying that's where I kind of got the idea.
Yeah. It's, it's something else, The Wire, isn't it? It's like poetry in motion.
Yeah.
On this really weird...
This scene originally had... You saw Dominic get the keys, run off. There's a chase scene. Richard Brake hurts his leg on a nail. And later you see Dominic, you do see him wrapping up his ankle, but... And then he throws the keys at Richard Brake, and Richard Brake did a fall. But just, to be fair, I'll be honest, it looked a bit naff, and I just said to Giles, I think that's a CGI house.
Yeah.
The top of the house is CGI. We need to cut that because it just doesn't look right. And Giles was, agreed.
You were almost like an editor on it.
I gave notes in the cinema that I based on what I thought the flow of the movie was, and we all had our input. It was just really. I mean, if you look there, there's a fault there because the house is gone.
Oh yeah.
It's all right though. It's one of those things. Every time I watch Jurassic Park, there's something else that I pick up that isn't right, and that's my favourite movie of all time. So it doesn't bother me, that stuff.
I meant to say, like, at the start, is this like pulling teeth, or are you just so used to kind of like so far? You've watched. I guess like versions of this so many times now. That
it would be if I wasn't talking about it, I suppose. But I always like picking these things apart and talking to people about them because I don't get to do it that often because I'm not in London.
Yeah.
That's where he would have. It was because he twisted his ankle when he was chasing after him.
Right.
So it might look a bit random.
Using that anyway. No, I think it talks. It leans towards the bond, the further development between them, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It's. But now that you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a bit strange.
It's a bit odd, yeah.
Just,
this. I mean, there was a bit where I think this was a bit verged on. We were I certainly was really pushing it to not to be sort of a paedophilic sexual relationship.
Yeah.
That line there was ADR. Giles had an awful lot of trouble getting rights to put on that TV there.
Yeah, I bet he did.
But ours is in a strange world, is it? So?
It depends on what's in the public domain, really.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Well, I'm kind of surprised because you might be able to find stuff like that in the public domain.
Yeah, we really wanted it to be like father-son rather than... I mean, it's still creepy regardless, but...
Promise you'll never leave.
Yeah, again, like, watching it in the cinema, which I'd kind of like... I like referring to because it's like a fresh... it was an experience. I just sat and watched the film and I knew fairly not much about it. I don't think I ever read it.
Just like him, he says there, hoping that the audience would think that he meant Dominic, who we actually haven't even met yet, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I always think that we he's in right from the beginning, but you haven't even seen muscle-bound Dominic yet.
No. Ivan Drago.
Which is just really weird, because it feels quite far into the movie. He's got COVID, obviously. He was like the cause.
Yeah.
This was just like a backlot that was already sort of set up with that tickets sold and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
This is like another setup with his horseshoe stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, all this is set up, all of it, because it's not paying anything off because we haven't seen Dominic. We haven't seen...
Some of us need to have the evil taken out of us.
That mean you're evil too?
Yeah. See, sometimes we do that.
That always made me laugh, that line where he's like, does that mean you're evil too? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a badge of honour. Yeah, yeah.
It feels like there is quite a lot between them two early on now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But I'm not complaining. It needs to be. I don't recall it being.
And yeah, some people have said that it's sort of slowed the pace down too much. Other people have said there wasn't enough. So
it's only 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I think anything less than 90 minutes, you feel a bit robbed.
Yeah. unless it's Host, which made sense because it was a. Have you seen Host?
Yeah, I watched it again the other night.
Because it's a Zoom call, so it would.
I want to talk about that just in general, but I thought it was clever. Still clever the second time around.
Yeah, it is.
Made like watch it on Halloween.
I thought he was great there with his eyes. Mitch's eyes were just the way sort of you could see that like it was turning.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
What is it?
Oh, come on then, you fucking pussy. You enjoy watching it? You never noticed this?
When we were watching it in the cinema, I was more bothered about the language when my mum being there than the violence. I just know how much she hates swearing, so like I knew like, she wouldn't mind about the violence, but she's watched it multiple times since her and my dad, strangely. There he is.
Shall we watch the day?
This was written specifically for the movie as well.
Right. That's quite cool. I listened to a podcast called Forever Midnight, which is 3 American dudes, quite similar to us in that they used to be in bands and this tour and stuff, and they just watch like rubbish horror movies and good horror movies and talk about them. They released a short film called Night Drive, which is 10 minutes long, but each of the songs that are played in the car on the film, they just like put on Spotify for free, and because they're like good musicians, they're really good songs. They're like on my. There must be me and 5 other people listening to these songs. And,
Class.
But
that's a smart way of getting your music out there, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, it's quite funny just thinking about like that in terms of like film and post production, because there's music and audio effects happening now. But then equally, saying to them, can you just do a bit of banjo music around the tape?
Yeah, well, that was the composer. I mean, to be fair, they were that like sort of accommodating to sort of my input as well. That I even fed back on the soundtrack.
Really?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing and said, can we have a little bit of like songwriting experience with the band and stuff, but even just think like daft ideas like, I think we should have kind of like a thumping, continuous thumping beat there, or if more like, could you have it a bit like that bit of Sicario, or could you have it a bit like that bit, that kind of stuff. The cinematography is it's fascinating to listen to Andy Roger about where he placed the camera in order to make Dominic look as threatening as possible, and who was sort of had the authority in the scene, and
even down to I think that Zoom talk I listened to with him on where he was saying like the set for here he wanted so little interference and kind of like the room as possible, so all the lights were effectively like hung from right up the top. You could fully control them, but just so that it gave Giles and him full scope to take full advantage of the room and be able to film as much as they wanted in there.
I mean, it was freezing in there on that sound stage as well.
Was it?
Yeah. I had like...
It's funny because,
like 3 layers on a hat. There's a picture that Giles put out yesterday when you can see everyone, and then I'm wearing a hat and a puffer jacket. Because I wasn't obviously I was just sat there the whole time, but these guys were working, but still like.
And it's interesting because
that was a close-up shot in the original cut.
Right. That's a really nice shot. That.
I think it cut between this and the close-up, but. It was a lot more brutal. That was one of the, when I watched it, it looked. It's one of those though. If you've seen the original, you feel like it's not as intense. But if you haven't, your imagination does the work for you.
Yeah. And I think that I quite like that shot out wide of it, because you kind of you're seeing the full thing unfold in front of you as well. Sometimes with close-ups you can miss.
Yeah,
miss
totally.
the scope, if that makes sense. Oh, because that's why they're made to pick up small detail. You know what I mean.
One thing we did want to kind of do as well is Adam, the security guard, has been like the kind of pussy, and having the girl who's like been on a night out has been a little bit more hard edged.
Yeah, and a bit stronger.
I mean, he's just a badass. His Robert Massa, I mean, he's done like Mission Impossible and other sort of stunt stuff and fighting stuff and sort of like big baddie roles. Not big baddie roles, but sort of, you know, when you have like gangsters in films that are unnamed or whatever, and you have to do that kind of fighting stuff with the main actor.
Yeah.
So he's well versed in that kind of combat.
Yeah. So did he do a lot of that? It wasn't.
Yeah, he did all of his his stuff. This is I remember Giles texting me saying, like, before we started the script, like, for the torture stuff, you know, we can have like nails getting ripped off and like that kind of stuff. I don't know where my head was at when I came up with this, to be honest, but the idea of why don't we put cockroaches down a tube and make sure the cockroaches have razor blades in the back.
Yeah, it's a new one, definitely. You can kind of see it on like top 10 lists of.
It was on one, yeah. Oh no, it was the spider eggs one. Was on What Culture's one, number 2.
Right.
Top 10 fates worse than death. But then it annoys me a little bit, to be honest, when I see like some reviews saying about like mindless violence and stuff. Well, he's done it because that happened to him, where someone put a cockroach in his mouth when he was little.
Yeah.
So he's not just doing it just because. It's a payoff for what happened to him when he was little.
Yeah.
What I'd give to have that mask in my office.
Where is it?
I'm sure it got lost.
No way.
I'm sure it did. And I heard them talking about it. They were talking about it on a podcast the other day. And it was like, it's got like an eye in it, which I didn't even know. I've never seen it in real life.
Oh, right, okay.
It's made up of like, it's very, very detailed.
Yeah. I bet.
I was always worried that you wouldn't see the razor blade in the back when it runs off. I don't think you do, really. You only really notice it when he stamps on it and then takes it out.
Yeah.
You would have to have an extreme close-up of a CGI, which probably wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, the movement's quite funny.
This bit with the musical, I wanted the music to go over this scene where it's sort of like had that creepy kind. It's very subtle, but like no one would have really noticed. I'm just massive on soundtrack, so.
Yeah, you are big on soundtrack. Have you got the Halloween soundtrack on fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love a movie sound. I remember seeing the shot sort of sketch for this in the studio and laughing my head off when I just saw him wearing. We did write it that he had the party hat on. It just looked so funny.
Yeah.
And now every time there's a birthday, I just say, I do like a birthday. And he's just like eating like a raw sweet potato.
Yeah, and some beans. Which I presume are cold. I don't know why. But...
Right.
Like even just the balloon there, kind of filling up that empty space in the shot's really nice.
And he takes the photo, and that's his Credence, wife, going up to heaven.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Why?
I said it doesn't matter. Sit down.
How come it doesn't matter?
Still in the party hat. It was really difficult finding the balance because, like, if he had really brilliant parents in the first place, he'd be devastated. So he can't have had the best life in the first place to sort of accept Credence into his life.
Yeah, but Stockholm Syndrome's real.
Mm.
It's and well documented. It's interesting there that the kid had the had a checkered shirt.
Checkered shirt, and
yeah.
That's. To be fair, certainly didn't write that in. That must have been something Giles had decided to do, and it makes sense. It's really difficult, to write scenes with just 3 people in one room, and really good exercise in screenwriting, to be fair.
Well, yeah, it's I was going to say kind of earlier that it's interesting because it's, there's examples of like one room films, horrors, I guess it's more common in, like The Devil, I think, is set in the lift. The Tom Hardy one where he's just in his car.
10 Angry Men.
Yeah. Hateful Eight is effectively
just
in
a play.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it. You could probably do a play of this, to be honest.
Yeah.
Without too much It'd be funny if this was the end of the movie.
I like that he got out like so quickly and quite early
Yeah.
on in the movie because it gives you like a glimmer of
Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what I was going to say is obviously you combat you've got all the flashbacks of Richard Brake and
Mhm.
Mitch.
To mix it up.
So you don't feel like it's just a film in that room because some of those films can very much feel like that.
Oh,
and it
God,
can
yeah.
get quite tiresome. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? So that it feels slightly different.
But there was a lot more dialogue. This was actually full of like shit. Then and then Yarif, the exec, was like, why is it got loads of that brown stuff in it? And we were like, I don't really know. So we just tried again. But yeah, there was a lot of written on page of like dialogue between these three, character building, bonding, all that type of stuff. But you've only got a certain amount of time, so
Yeah. Like I said, it feels fine without it. It feels great. Were you concerned with like Saw comparisons?
I wasn't until it came out, and that's everyone was like, it was influenced by Saw, and I wouldn't even put Saw anywhere near my top 10 movies, and that horror movie, I appreciate how great it is, but it certainly wasn't something that influenced me.
Yeah.
And that's just being honest. Like me and Andy said that at the cinema as well when it got asked. Andy's never even seen it.
Right.
I think Giles certainly was more into Saw than I was.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I hate the term torture porn and all that.
Yeah.
I just. That's why I prefer those sort of dramatic scenes between Richard Brake and Dominic and the drama side of it than the torture. But it's something I have to be really careful of in the Dare 2 though, is like I could just make it a completely, if it happens, fingers crossed, like make it a completely different genre and just get far away from the torture genre as possible. But the studio and the execs will definitely want an element of it in
Some form of.
no, but you have to play the game. To be fair, you have to.
I think you can do it, and you can do it smartly without having to kind of succumb to their demands too much. You know,
compromise.
Like, yeah.
This bit here, I really drives me crackers every single time, because why doesn't there's two sides of the argument. Why doesn't Richard Shaw's character Adam there just run out? He's got an axe on him.
Yeah.
He could just go and chop his head off.
Yeah.
But the argument is that he's just seen what happened to Jay when he tried to escape.
Yeah.
So, and he does look at the door and sort of considers it, and I think that's obvious enough. And he's a pussy.
Yeah, his character is
Yeah.
a bit of a
So although me and you are, well, I don't know what I'd do in this situation. To be honest, I'd have probably passed out of fear. But like
your hero character.
yeah, your hero character might run.
You'd anticipate an attack.
But he's not a hero character.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the argument is. I think that's the problem with horror movies sometimes. Sometimes you go, well, you would do that, but that doesn't mean that character would, because that character's not a very nice person, or that character. I mean, this was a lot. You saw all of this.
Right. Yeah.
You
I
saw.
think you can get away with that. Yeah.
You saw all of that. They've done a great job of cutting it, so it looks like you didn't have to. But look, I mean, I don't know how they had enough shots to do it.
Yeah.
You don't even see it, and people are like, "Oh my god!" But you saw it like going. It was like the Passion of the Christ.
And is there was, that kind of nail to the hand? Is that symbolic of anything? Did you write that?
I suppose there is, in that he was the one who was trying to be a saviour and get it. I don't know. Not really.
You can say no.
I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of things like if I was unconsciously doing it, but probably not. No, to be honest, I just thought, well, that's not going to be very nice.
Yeah.
And he's it was the most brutal way that I could stop him from escaping is by nailing him to the wall.
Yeah, exactly. It's effective. Isn't it? It's that thing about what, like, people say, like, I'd do this, or well, I'd do that, and I think people think quite highly of themselves in a lot of situations.
Very true. I mean, what we've seen is in the last since the pandemic started that whatever you would do is, you know, people act irrationally in extreme situations.
Yeah.
So really, all these horror movies, I mean, that's pretty nasty.
Yeah, it's minging in a good way. Yeah, but look, people are like panic buying toilet roll again. People are idiots. They like to think that they'd smack him around the head with an axe and run off, but actually they're much more likely to freeze and help him out.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Because we've just seen what happened to Jay, like I said, and it wasn't great for him.
No.
So
It looks nasty. I do quite like the almost like stuff through the hands trope and like pulling things out. It's
it's mad. I don't like it.
It's a great way to make you squirm.
I mean, one of the things in the struggle of writing the Dare 2 is that the reason that Dominic does these things is because these have happened to him before. I mean, even that one, to be fair, I don't know why I didn't think of this when you were asking there, but he got sort of thingy to the...
Right, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So that it works in that way as well.
Yeah. You've done an interesting thing with shutter speed on there, so when she ran in you could tell that it was flashback and not quite real because the shutter speed was slightly different, so the movement of the person is it's just slightly off, not what you'd normally get on a 25 frames per second.
I would have no idea that was the case, so you've taught me something there.
There you go. And he's probably screaming going, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
What are you on about?
Roy is ugly and kissed a girl.
No specifics. Come on, you guys.
We spoke a lot about
These things.
why they were in there.
Right. Yeah.
And there'll be half the people who watch this who don't buy it, and that's fair enough. That was just the best scenario we could think of. When he says he works out horseshoe here, if I was to be a bit critical, it would be that it doesn't really sound like he's saying horseshoe at all. And then Jay kind of, if you just listen, I mean, this is Megan.
That is far.
Yeah, he says like I don't know, he got horse from that. If I'm honest, but it's fine. It's not a big thing. He has drawn a horseshoe as well.
Yeah.
It was initially a sun because it was sunny day holiday camp.
Right.
But we just kept it simple with a horseshoe motif that's thrown throughout it.
Not to Friday the 13th.
Yeah, and that as well.
He has a horseshoe print on his hair. I saw it when he tore his glove off.
Yeah, so in the Dare 2, the reason that he does these things is because they happen to him. But if you're having torture scenes in the sequel, well, why is he doing them?
Yeah.
So that's been really the biggest struggle in writing it, to be fair, and coming up with a legitimate, believable reason as to why this is happening again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think we've managed it.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see kind of where. It's funny because as a friend,
You'll be able to read it.
I get to see kind of like your brain on paper. You know what I mean?
It's
It
funny
kind of
being
go,
a
you
screenwriter,
solved
though.
that like
Yeah.
by doing this and
But only your mates, when you're a screenwriter, and only your mates and the people involved with the making of the movie get to read the script. Like, it doesn't go on Waterstone's shelf.
yeah.
So it's...
Unless you're like Tarantino.
Well, yeah, of course,
yeah.
but
no, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
that's why I'm kind of like, I want to write a novel, I think. These were reshoots.
Police found what was left of the kid.
Yeah, the original ones didn't work. They had different kids and everything, and it was
Really?
simply just because I think they just didn't have enough time and they rushed it, and they had no choice but to rush it.
The girl with that the girl looks so much like someone I work with that
Really,
it's quite creepy. Yeah.
It's not true.
I thought these kids were great though. Oliver, he's really good kid. I've never met him, to be honest. I just know that from just speaking to him on social media and stuff that he seems like a nice kid. But he's good anyway.
That's the ending to his life.
And when he says there, like, he wouldn't kill somebody, that's Jay. And at the end, that theory is put to the test because he has an opportunity to kill Dominic and doesn't.
Yeah.
So it pays off him saying that he wouldn't, and he's kept true to his character because he wouldn't. He wouldn't when he was a kid, and he wouldn't now.
Yeah.
And then that's challenged even more in the sequel, if it happens.
It's
And
yeah, it's an interesting, like, seeing an interesting concept. This entire thing of kind of going back to the kids, because to start with, you're like, you know, obviously you're like, is it a flashback? But you think that he's now, so you're like, it's.
That was the intention anyway.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I mean, there'll certainly be people who'll be like, "That's ridiculous." I know there was like, even when I was passing it around, but there was people who read it who were like, "Well, they would know each other." But I remember, if personally, right, I've been on holiday when I was younger, like when they're 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, and I had mates who would play within the pool and be in this holiday club with. But if I met them now, I wouldn't have a clue who they were.
There is.
How would you?
Yeah, there's people that I knew as a teenager or hung around with that I'd walk past in this, thinking specifically about like some things that happened when I was like maybe 12 or 11, or like met girls, and like right now I could walk past that person in the street and I wouldn't have.
No,
especially just one day or a week. It's not like a mate from school that you saw every day for 5 years.
Exactly. This is just like a few days, if that. And people look a lot different when they're adults to when they're children most of the time. So I never really bought that people thought that they would have known each other. I don't.
The only thing that would ping it, I think, would be names, and they don't really say each other's names.
No.
Or, like, refer to each other's names at all, I think, during this.
I think he says, I mean, to be fair, he does say cat and... But, I don't know. A lot happens. This pays off the cockroaches going out the mouth because she's the one who puts it on it as well.
Yeah. Only this time with added. And I think that works. Because, like, a millisecond later and he'd spit it out. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And this is one of the reasons why Paul is in the state he's in.
Yeah. That's what you get, Paul. When you named the characters, was there any particular reason that you gave the people those names?
No, to be honest, mate, I don't have rhyme or reason for ever doing that. I think Kat was... Lena has a friend called Kat, and it was raised in conversation. So I was like, we'll just call her Kat, it's a cool name. And I always like short names. So if you noticed that anything I write would have like Kat, J, 3 letters, because I don't like it when you write someone's name and it overhangs onto the next chapter, the next line. Okay. So I'll always have 3-letter names where possible.
Yeah.
And I just think it's easier to listen to when you're listening to dialogue.
Yeah, I've always thought when I've named characters for whatever, and I've never really put X amount of thought into it.
And it's not...
The only time I've noticed that someone has is in my mum's very first book. There's 2 naughty kids on the estate called the Notorious Baker Boys, and I was like, that's me and my brother.
Yeah, class. Yeah, you've told me that before. I think.
Yeah, probably on the last podcast.
I think I hope Giles doesn't mind me saying this, but I think when he was little, something like this similar happened to him.
Wow.
And this exact thing.
It could be like, oh well, there we are. There's the
Yeah, and that's the, and I think the thing is, there's so much that isn't like. I just hope that people, when they're watching that, would get that link there. Do you know what I mean? And because I think there's a lot of smart stuff going on. Not blowing my own trumpet, just that Giles and Andy have done that. I wouldn't like to go. I'd be ashamed for it to go missed.
Yeah, I think people get it.
But yeah, I think that happened to him, and I think he wanted to get it in the script, so it's quite sad, really. You can't imagine that. Giles is such a confident, like, and he didn't go. I said to him when we were writing it, I was like, "How come you didn't lock them up in the basement and torture them?"
But yeah,
I don't think anything else. I think that it was just that particular bit where he's sort of left.
It's hard, like anything like that as a child can be like so traumatic.
It was really interesting after the premiere in Middlesbrough because I was talking to people like afterwards at the after party, and there were some people who were like massively Team Dominic, like after they saw this, like good, and that sort of switched them off anyone in the basement.
Yeah.
Which would have been a risk because, you know, typically you should always root for the hero. And then it kind of twisted it on its head. But then there was other people who were like, no, they were just kids, and kids do stuff like that.
They sound like they were horrible kids.
Well, and a couple of teachers actually.
Right.
I don't want to name any names, but a couple of teachers I know were like.
Was it like?
Well, when no, I don't like his opinion is, but when kids are kids are doing stuff when they're younger, and it's just because they haven't been raised right, and I'm sort of lean more onto that side of things. Although it was horrible what they did, you know, you'd like to think that as they grew older, they learned from what they'd done, and
yeah.
But it was weird. Like when we were getting feedback for the script, some people were saying, "Oh, all I've done is like fed him a few insects, and that wouldn't turn someone into a psycho." And they didn't deserve that. And the other people are like horrible kids. So I think it does its job in what's the word, like bringing those conversations to the fore and making you think about like, are they horrible kids or are they just kids, and did they deserve what happened to them?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a clear cut answer.
No, and I think that's probably best case scenario for a film that's been written. And you know, if there's a discussion point and people like the most important thing I've ever found, like when watching a film, is if like I get in the car afterwards, if it's at the cinema, which it hasn't been for a long time unfortunately, but like, or like when I watch a film and then afterwards, if it's at home, I then can't watch anything else because I need to like 20 minutes to digest it and think about it and have those conversations.
I was a bit like that for Saint Maud.
Yeah, which I might have to go tomorrow before.
It's so good. It's definitely worth watching.
I'm gonna see it. There's like because tomorrow night is like my last night to do anything exciting. I'm like, what should I do? Should I go to the cinema? Should I go snowboarding? Shall I, you know what I mean?
Go and see
like,
that.
Yeah,
I've just noticed like there was a wrong way D on the side of the wall line. I don't know if that's there on purpose.
Yeah.
Like Dominic before he got taken. Never noticed that before. I might have to ask Giles about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't know, like it's interesting that some people thought. I mean, I work in a family team with a lot of like vulnerable and chaotic kids and who do all sorts of bad things. So I suppose I'm a bit more tolerant of that kind of behaviour, in the hope that they will improve as people.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't expect the recipient of the bullying to go and do what Dominic does with that, but
well, I think he's also had been kidnapped and
yeah,
been killed for
there is
many
that,
years.
of course.
Yeah.
There was we put some ADR over this bit. I love this shot. I just think it's Giles and Andy at the best. The way that it's a great idea. I can't remember if it was in the script or not, to be honest. But there was ADR there where Richard Brake said, "You're a scumbag."
The lights there as well. Yeah. Sorry.
He said something to him like, "You're a piece of shit," or "You're a scumbag," or something. But it was Harry's reaction which didn't match the ADR. Right. I mean, it's only what he was told to do, but he kind of just went, "Right, okay, then I'm off."
Yep, I am.
Yeah. Whereas if he'd have been like looked hurt, then it would have made more sense. But we cut that ADR. The CGI spider. And interestingly, Dominic develops a relationship with the bugs that were the sort of central point of his bullying.
His torture. Yeah.
So there's that kind of like he forms a relationship with the person who captured him. He forms a relationship with the insects that caused him all that trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, this all this kind of thought and discussion went into writing the script. Over many hours of conversation. Like even this, where he draws the eye, later when the worm goes in the eye, that's where he got the sort of inspiration for it from.
Yeah. There's like obviously an insect of some sort in there, and it's funny, and people don't realise like I remember reading about Guillermo del Toro we did the film with Charlie Hunnam where he's in the
Pacific Rim, and he wrote like a 30,000.
He wrote like a Bible,
Yeah.
which was like the entire world, so it had like a backstory and.
Yeah. Did he say that on the? Have you watched the director's commentary on the DVD or the Blu-ray? That I think he mentions it on that. It's probably the best commentary I've ever seen. Yeah, I would have brought it for you. I've got it on Blu-ray, and the commentary is just fascinating to watch.
Yeah,
it's just anything with Del Toro talking about movies is interesting.
I think by doing that and then kind of creating that world and then going and directing it, like that is such a powerful tool for you to then
reference
direct your actors and create this world, and that that's like Del Toro's a master of worlds.
Of course, world building.
Yeah.
This is all reshoots. It was originally like a computer room that he went in, but just didn't. Again, I think that it was just a matter of time that they didn't.
Yeah.
That kid there who was they actually had to bring an actor on set to take those photographs, and it was like kind of my job to look after him. I think I tortured him, to be honest.
Like a lot of photos, when like
Lena wrote that. Sorry to interrupt. Lena wrote that entire article.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah, and he's described as being craven as well. And that one. If you zoomed in, he's called Dominic Craven.
Right.
Like as in Wes Craven, obviously.
Yeah. Ah, there we are. Samara and Wesley Craven.
Yeah. Wesley Craven, so his dad's Wes Craven. God rest his soul. But yeah, that's Lena's little thought of. Sorry, what were you saying before that?
When you see photos in films of the actors, I'm like, how much, when.
Hate that one.
No, if it's of like.
Hey, I just.
Scarlett Johansson when she's like 10 or whatever, and you're like, did they literally get like scanning a family photo? And a lot of times I imagine they did. You know what I mean? Whereas
I know it's always interesting that, isn't it? But yeah, they brought a kid in who was really tall. I remember him being really tall. Just like from an acting school in Bulgaria, just to be on set so they could take photographs of him.
Yeah.
In the original script, which me and Harry went for tea with Giles and Julian after this, or one of the nights on set, and Dominic starts to undo his belt, starts to undo Credence's belt and says, "I'll do anything." And me and Harry kind of said, "We can't have this. It goes against the entire relationship, which is father-son. He's not angry for sexual reasons." And it was kind of in there to make, this makes it more creepy, but no. So
I don't think it'd fit.
It didn't fit, and it was cut out, thankfully.
Yeah.
I don't think it was shot anyway. I don't think Giles shot it.
Let's come outside.
The only way you could is, if you took the belt off him and then like beat him with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I just don't think Dominic's head would have went there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because that would suggest that he's done him sexual favours before. And
exactly.
That raises just so many questions. So didn't make sense. It's a pretty sexless movie, to be honest, but that's alright.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah.
No. That's Giles's hand, I think. If I'm not wrong.
Did he just have that dial in his house or something?
I don't know, to be honest. I just think that, I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's Giles's hand. This was the bit. He started to undo his belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just doesn't need to be there. Obviously, when I said earlier that Richard Brake had COVID, Richard Brake doesn't have COVID, but like the character, when he was coughing, that this is paying off that he was ill. I mean, there's been a few times where he's been coughing, and
yeah,
it just allowed him to be weak enough to let go of the chains or whatever. I remember Harry having to be like hung upside down multiple times.
Yeah,
to do that scene.
So many times, yeah. He's clearly in shape. Or was that stunt hang from the?
Oh, that was him.
That was all him.
I mean, he's such a sort of pretty boy as well that to make himself look like he would actually do this. I mean, this is just a weird shot here with his eyes. Like,
Yeah. It's cool.
Henry.
It's darling.
But I think
My parents were looking for me.
him being quite pretty and fair-haired like lends itself to the...
yeah, we didn't want to have sort of like a weird looking, because it's being done so many times. Like,
It's too easy as well. Oh,
Yeah.
you've got a weird-looking psycho kid. Like, why not have a... You know, it's fairly obvious now that, like, jocks, I guess, are can be pretty fucking cool people. You know what I mean?
oh
So,
god, yeah,
Not saying that he's a jock, but
No.
you know what I mean. It just
yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
yeah, definitely. And there was I think one of the guys involved in the movie wanted to kind of bring him back at the end, and he was like on a ventilator and all this kind of stuff. But you get all sorts of ideas thrown around.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah,
It's-
is it quite hard to be like yes but no?
Yeah,
but,
but you just have to sort of do it in a way that isn't like, well, you're wrong. You know, just
Yeah,
like, I hear what
yeah.
you're saying, but I don't think it'll work for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And as long as you have your reasons why it won't work, then
I think I'd probably lose my patience, but maybe later.
we added this ADR to give a bit of extra added motivation to him being influenced by Credence.
Yeah,
And again, this is really a big part of the Dare 2 if it happens, and how much Credence is actually in his head rent free. His masks was the idea was I love this bit as well.
it's a gorgeous shot.
Yeah, Credence's skin was one of the sort of
Right.
is when he's painting blood on the mask there or whatever. That's the idea was Credence's skin.
Yeah,
He never actually called Credence in the movie.
I just keep thinking of Creedence Clearwater Revival.
You only know it from the credits.
At most.
Think about it.
That got a big laugh in Popcorn Frights, and it was unintended. When he says we need to apologise, obviously the American audience thought that was really hilarious. And it's probably a more old British sense of humour or whatever, or British sort of sensibility of like,
Yeah.
we must be polite and apologise because Americans would never do that. So everyone in the theatre like laughed because he said we need to apologise. And his point was, the idea was that if they're nice to Dominic, maybe they'll sort of unpick a bit of his humanity and sort of be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah,
Now they know that he was a good kid.
yeah.
That was his sort of... So probably would write that a little bit differently now. Because it's probably being watched by a lot of people in America who are just like, what?
Apologise.
Yeah.
You don't apologise for nothing.
Yeah.
Strange country.
It's a cool mask though. I'd love it in my office.
It is really good.
I think they've lost it.
Yeah. You could probably... Oh yeah, there is an eye there. You could probably remake it. Not you, someone. You know what I mean?
Well, someone at the studio is going to have to if we do it again.
Yeah,
And-
true. Keep that one.
And not just one either.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. 100 of them.
Those wigs, like Jay had to come back for reshoot. Bart had to come back for reshoots, and I think those wigs cost like $2,500.
Oh yeah, that didn't surprise me. I feel like real.
Because his hair was different. He hadn't shaved his head, but he had really short hair,
Yeah.
and it cost like $2,500 just for a wig.
Crazy, isn't it?
This bit here, oh god, some of my worst writing ever. Not this bit in particular because it was cut thankfully, but I think he says you can come to my wedding or something. Well, yeah, that was the original line because he was getting married,
Stack do. Yeah.
and it's like, what? Why would you say that? I think the cattle prod was used more effectively no, I think it's right that it isn't used. But I think he did actually nail someone with it at some point, but it would have killed him, so...
Right. Yeah, that's quite a hard line to walk. I think, yeah, and I think this pays off more now that you've seen that other scene.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, with the spiders.
And I feel like that takes away from it being torture porn, mindless brutality. You know, sorry to reference it, but in Saw, he's just playing a horrible game with them. You know what I mean? Effectively, whereas this is got a much deeper emotional connection than that.
Yeah, like personal.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like Saw 5 or something, I think. I stopped watching after a while, but I think his wife gets like, she's pregnant and someone slams a door on her, so he like knacks him for that.
Right.
The first one's just because they didn't like. I mean, Saw is like obviously a masterpiece of that genre, but it's just not my cup of tea, really.
Yeah. I think it was very beneficial at the time as well.
Yeah. I just love the colour, like the lighting a lot more on this. It's nice to see actually, because I always just thought it was so dark. And the Lionsgate have released it, and it's a lot lighter.
Yeah, I think cinema does that. If I'm honest.
Oof, I think that's probably the bit that's one of the most brutal.
Yeah.
Even though he's dead, it's just like he treats him like a. I mean, Dominic doesn't actually. Apart from that, he's dead. I think it's one of the few times that Dominic actually hurts someone. He makes the others do it.
Yeah. I do like his room.
Yeah, I like it when he trashes it as well. In the script, it was one of my favourite bits of the script because all his insects and bugs, like he smashed all the bottles up and they all started swarming around him, so it was like a tornado around him.
Yeah.
But it was just really difficult to do CGI. See that there?
Yeah.
That was the original ending.
Yeah.
And that kind of paid it off. The original
yeah.
ending with the heads on the sticks, and then he kind of walked into the woods.
I love a hopeless ending.
And that was, well, I loved it as well. It was just so bleak, but the studio just went, we cannot allow that to happen. And it's good now because it means that there's a very good chance of a sequel, but
yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't nice.
No, I mean, as your friend, I like that you at least attempted it.
It was shot, so.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I'm sure I've got it.
You should get a print made of it.
Yeah, I'll show you it when you're around.
Keep it away from River.
Yeah. I'll show you it when you're around.
Yeah.
It's great. But
yeah, I really like the idea behind seeing kind of where bad guys live and their little holes. The only film I can think of at the minute is Insidious, which does it really badly when you see that little red.
Oh god, yeah.
And you see what's it called, Darth Maul in his little hole. But the idea of them having like a little a space is quite interesting, and how they'd organise that space if they were that type of creature.
Of course. And this is pays off when he got sprayed.
Yeah.
I think everything really is paying off what happened. I like how Dominic, I mean, like, it's funny, he wears skinny jeans, and I think there was like someone who reviewed it in America said that it was like a gay icon or something. And then Lionsgate put nipples on him on the DVD cover, which weren't on the original shot.
Right.
Which I just thought was interesting. That certainly wasn't my choice.
Maybe they just thought there's a niche market there that they could also also get into.
Gay psychopaths.
Yeah. Dominatrix.
There's a bit here which I really like.
Equally, he's such a giant.
That bit there, for some reason. I always like that with the smoke. It's like, where does it come from? But I like it anyway.
Well, it's just the dust kicking up,
yeah.
I think. But someone of his size and stature probably only has like normal jeans would be skinny jeans.
Yeah,
so,
true.
Unless they were like Bernie's Bladers and like purposely like really baggy.
You should have worn like a Slipknot hoodie and baggy jeans. DC trainers.
Do you think any of the mask influence came from your love of Slipknot?
Did
you have any say in the design of the mask? Or
no.
Was that just...
I mean, I think I described it as the most horrible mask you've ever seen or something like that.
Alright.
And that was it.
Yeah. Which of like human skin and stuff is... I mean, it's pretty grim.
There's been a fair amount of people who've said that they'll never speak to me again since the film came out after this bit.
I mean, yeah, it's foul.
That was more, the eye cutting is much more intense in the uncut version as well.
Yeah, but it is. Have you seen that Star Trek with the Ewoks scene?
I don't think I have.
It's horrible. I don't know why I've seen it, because Star Trek is not appealing to me at all, but I remember seeing this scene as a kid.
Yeah, this was... I mean, Dominic, to be fair to him, he's like probably the most emotional of the, if you want to call them serial killers. I don't know if there's a more sensitive serial...
I don't know, I've seen a few.
Look at him in the mood there, slams the door.
Yeah.
He's just quite high maintenance, really.
Yeah. I think probably Leatherface. It seems quite emotional.
Yeah.
Seems to get quite upset. to put it one way. I think I'm going to do that next year for my movie marathons. They are all going to do with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot. I didn't realise quite how many there is.
A fair few, yeah.
What's that Leatherface origin like? Have you seen that? Because your friend wrote that, didn't he?
They filmed it at New Bayana, and
Right.
Julian's in it.
All right.
And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, and I haven't seen it, but it is supposed to be absolutely terrible.
That's what I thought. I'm going to have to watch it anyway. But
There's his eye. I might be wrong, I haven't seen it. I like this. I had more of this in the script, if I'm honest, with her holding his hand and all that kind of more like personal drama. But I totally get why it wasn't. And this was probably my favourite. And I like that what they did with the soundtrack and this bit.
yeah.
This was probably my favourite scene in the script, at least, and I think that Giles did a class job of getting the intensity of it.
Yeah.
Because it's more sort of pathos than, oh my god, look how scary he is. It's
Yeah.
and his mask coming off a bit there.
I wonder if they shot it with two cameras on set, because you could kind of have. I was just watching the cuts there and kind of from throwing paper, which would be really hard to do twice.
Yeah.
I wonder if they just had that camera up the top at all times, and then this.
Maybe I wasn't there for
This
that.
angle as well.
That bit there, I mean, that mask even looked sad there, to be fair. But that bit there, they had like a big chat dialogue scene where they were talking about all the things that wish they'd done and all the regrets, and they talked about the family life and all that, but just got cut. I think they might have shot it as well. And also, Adam went from being quite a sort of decent guy talking about his past to now like, give me the knife. So probably it's best for the best.
It's interesting saying like you're braver than me, but also being quite commanding. You know, something's obviously shifted since he lost his eye. So.
Yeah. That was we reshot this. I think he died a different way in the originally. I mean, that's not a very nice way to die. Either.
No, I imagine that's rather painful.
I'm sure I read something where they'd put a sort of sexual connotation to that as well, which wasn't intended whatsoever. He had a knife in his mouth.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, God forbid anyone psychoanalyzes this really to get a peek into your mind.
I know. Yeah. Well, that certainly wasn't the intention. But
Yeah.
Repeat after me. It wasn't my fault.
It's good though. Like I liked it when it happened because you know your hero's done it and
yeah.
you're kind of like, oh shit, like he's
And I thought
he's done a murder.
Yeah, he's done a murder, and weirdly, like I think it speaks to his character. But Jay saying it wasn't your fault. Well, she never said it was.
Yeah.
And I thought Alex Evans done a fab job with this dialogue.
This time you knew.
That she knew the whole time.
Yeah.
Years I held onto the shitter for what?
I guess for her, you know, sometimes when you're like, you can't sleep and you're like, oh, why did I say that thing to that kid when I was 9? It might be like that thing for her. You know what I mean?
We just want to go home. I returned to your world after. There was still no home. Still no family.
I mean, I don't know what happened there. I mean, I'd like to know a little bit insight into that bit. He returned to the world. Where did he go? What did he see? Who did he bump into?
Did he have his mask on? Did he?
Exactly. Like what? Well, that was the studio sort of wanted that line in.
Okay.
That he tried to live in the normal world, but it didn't work out for him. Which I never really sort of got it or liked it, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an entire film in himself. It's like a rom-com maybe. It didn't work out for him, and then he met Jennifer Aniston, and she went no, and then he became a psycho killer.
You see him like with that mask on in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like being stood up,
Yeah.
crying. I'll paint you that one day. Like I've never painted anything, but
Please do.
That wasn't so hard.
you got some fan art and stuff, didn't you? When
Yeah,
it first
it's
came
been
out,
a
that was
fair
really
bit.
cool.
Yeah. It's nice to see. Some like, to be fair, it seems like not a lot, but some people do really love it. Some people hate it, but I think the people who love it like really love it.
Yeah. Well, I think not to like categorize anybody, but like if people have
Gone through
gone through
bullying
some
or
pretty horrific stuff, yeah, and
revenge fantasy, isn't it?
yeah, but equally like if you know,
Oh, and he's done another one.
oh, see that far, done a murder.
I mean, this is technically Dom does finish the job.
That kind of hesitation is really nice though.
Yeah,
It's kind of like shit. She's
and then his character's gone a different. So on this bit, he pulls out a heart,
kid mental, yeah.
and then you see him kind of squash it, but we didn't see it. So he squashes the heart in his hand, and it was a bit too over the top. So
I feel like it gets the point across anyway. And it's effective. It looks really good.
another problem is he's just been stabbed in the spine by the looks of it, and doesn't seem to be in that much pain. But
Yeah.
we can get away with it because we're taking him from the likes of, like you say, like Jason Voorhees and that kind of thing, and they've got a certain level of like supernaturalness about them, haven't they?
Yeah, of course they all do. I really like when Friday the 13th became self-aware, and the when Jason like stood next to a door, it just exploded.
Yeah. That bit there was a scene where there was a dialogue line where he says, your internet and phones made you easy to find. And it was like, the studio wanted to know how they found him. So I wrote it and they recorded it, and then I listened to it. Like, I was like, Jazz, we cannot have that line. What do you mean, your internet? Like, as if Dominic's been on Facebook.
Yeah,
or TikTok or
all of a
whatever.
sudden he's like some hacker.
It didn't matter how we found them. It just, for me, it
What
just
matters
didn't
is
matter.
that he found. Yeah.
It didn't matter. There's so you can just over-explain things too much.
Yeah.
Less is
totally,
more for me. You don't need to explain how we found him. Who cares?
And it's funny. Again, like writing stuff, it can be really tempting to really over-explain things.
Yeah.
And be like, how did he get here? Well, da 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 da. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've just written Vivid, which is just that one I was saying. It's gone out today, and like I'm still worried that there's just too much explanation because you're worried that you're going to confuse people. And
Yeah. But I think if you write it and then it gets made and it is too much, it'll always come out. In the
it'll always
edit.
come out in the edit, yeah.
And that's okay. That's a good thing. That's what editing's for, isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
Just like trim the fat
And I think there's no better way for those things to come to sort of stick out and be like sore thumbs as when acted.
Yeah.
This was a stuntman. I think Bart Royal rumbled himself out over there. This was sort of my little WWE wrestling, love of wrestling coming in that bit there, I suppose.
Yeah.
They chose to. I mean, this is him becoming Credence essentially.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he killed him, but he still had a profound impact on him. So I really like that kind of like yin and yang love-hate relationship that he had with him. And he's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to put him in the blood.
Well, there's an interesting, and I don't know how much you know about
There it is.
it, but like there's that kind of theory that we become our fathers, and it harkens back to like really, really old writings of like, by killing our fathers we then become them, or at least when our fathers die.
Yeah.
But like go back to like the biblical times, it was written as like killing our fathers so that we could then become them and then be the heads of the family.
Yeah,
and, like
and then you look at Freud and it's all about being in love with your mother and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like, so it works from like a kind of deep psychological perspective. I don't think anyone would have ever questioned it. You know what I mean? Him becoming him after also killing him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh no, there's a lot of like father-son stuff.
Yeah, to unpack.
In fact, I think every single script I've ever written has stuff about parenting, and certainly more so since I became a dad.
Yeah. Did you write this?
Pre-River.
Yeah.
It's been difficult writing the draft of the sequel with as a dad, to be honest.
As a parent,
especially since there's one of the main people in it is 6.
Right. Which River.
River's not 6, but he's like, he will be one day.
He will be at some point. Yeah.
It's just.
It's funny, that juxtaposition of like pure innocence, effectively.
But I was here on set for this. Actually, it was amazing just seeing them two go at it, like beating the hell out of each other. Again, like being a wrestling fan, it was like fascinating to see how they made it look legit.
Yeah,
even while it's not hurting each other.
Yeah, but even then, still potentially taking some lumps and bumps in the process.
Yeah, of course.
You hear it happening on film sets all the time.
Yeah. In the first cut, obviously, when Jay was killed and his head was put on a spike, it was like this big escape, and then he got murdered in the end and his head put on a spike, so it was all for nothing, and it was like a very bleak outlook.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, and Giles will really probably think about this all the time, but he had like a beautiful shot and the sun came through the trees of them two kind of looking at each other, and now then it snowed for the reshoots and it's supposed to be August, remember?
Is it?
Yeah, because they were at the summer camp in August. He says August 18th or something.
Yeah,
but you could say it's in some bizarre American place where, I don't know, like where there's a weird weather pattern. I don't think, again, it's one of those things where it's not a massive thing.
But you're limited where if your studio is in Bulgaria, your outdoor shoots are going to be, well, in certain parts. Bulgaria is like that. It's either sunny or snowy.
I remember like giving myself a migraine thinking about this reshoot. Like, I think Giles was like, we've got to get this in the next 48 hours. I'm going to shoot it in a few days. And I think I like threw up from thinking.
How did you manage that by also having a job?
I was thinking about it at work, if I'm honest, and then to think when I came back, I was just like sat there like this, like, oh my god. We had River as well. He wasn't long born, and I was like, I need it to be bittersweet. I need the ending to be not happy clappy, but also give them what they want. Yeah. And open up a possibility of a sequel. And the way that it ends is really the only way I could. I think I wrote 10 different versions.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Where they went back. Dominic went back to the house.
If you think about the process of idea formation, like, you know what I mean, you
it was nuts. It was like really. I remember sending like pictures to Giles of the script and him like being either like yes or no, essentially.
Yeah, and having to be that.
And having to be like come up with an idea instantly.
It's really like interesting that, like, not interesting, but like the fact that the studio with that, like, go on and change this, and you're like, fucking hell, like how. Like, do you understand what it takes to come up with the convincing?
Oh, God, yeah. And I think, there's been some criticism of the ending, actually. Other people have loved it. And in that it feels tacked on, and that was one of our concerns in the first place. But my theory was that it actually harks back to the middle of the movie where the kids are sat around the campfire.
Yeah.
So there's that motif. So it's not that hacked on, like...
I really like that, and
it makes sense that they're talking about it, so it sort of becomes a legend,
yeah,
and a folklore
yeah.
again, which I really wanted to do.
I liked that. I didn't see any issue with it. I didn't feel tacked on when I first watched it. I only knew about the second ending. I think you mentioned it at the premiere afterwards.
Yeah.
During the Q&A. Music here reminds me of something.
It reminds me of and I think it was a note I'd given actually of Ex Machina.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's very similar to the music when she escapes at the end. Eva escapes at the end.
Yeah.
So then, no, the movie could have ended here, and that would have been it.
Yeah,
but I
totally.
I thought it was just too nice. And to be fair, the ending of this could actually start the sequel.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So I mean, maybe some people would have been happier if it had just ended here. I don't particularly love this line where he says, "I'll live." I think. Yeah, that's just me rushing, to be honest. I don't know why you would say that. Of course he'll live. It's not like that's what you say when you're falling over and banged your knee. Like,
I'll live.
I'll live. But you know, I think if I was on set, I'd have probably said, "Please don't say that." Or just not said anything.
Yeah.
I think I'd asked them, Giles, to cut it out, but they just didn't have time. So it's again like it's not a massive thing. No one's gonna go, "Oh well, it's terrible because he says I live at the end" or whatever.
Yeah. No, not at all.
He could have just said. She could have just said, "What's your favourite John Carpenter movie?" And he could have went, "They Live."
Any reason?
Just like randomly.
Any reason you said it in America?
It was set in England originally.
Yeah.
And it was just because it was a bigger market.
Yeah. It's very easy to switch. There's no like. It could be anywhere.
Vaster. It was more vast.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's harder to find if Dominic was like hiding out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Police would have been easy. It would have been easier.
I suppose. Yeah.
Dude, Dad will never know. Besides, the freak's long gone. DEAD. Fucked.
I hate dads.
Well, then you should have.
These girls, I do worry about how much older they'll be when we do the sequel. But anyway, that's not my problem, I don't think.
It's just some really bad CGI.
Yeah.
Did that kick his ass, right?
Hell, 10 years ago tonight.
No, I get it.
Poppy, his daughter, was named after
Found cockroaches.
a friend of mine at work.
Made them slice
Who's
each
just
other.
such a character, I thought. And not probably a bit like how she is, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I thought I was just going to name her.
Dude pinned one of the prisoners down and got him with the weapon.
Yeah, I liked it in the cinema because it gave you an extra like.
Coming with me and found a farmhouse.
I just thought, oh, this is
Yeah.
interesting. Like,
No way.
Like a double
We never found the
punch, I guess, at the end.
Uh-huh.
And you know, it's ending more on a high, I guess. That was the compromise, I thought. You know, you want to end on like a buzz,
yeah,
but not a happy clappy buzz. A
Yeah,
buzz
yeah.
of a jump scare, which is cheap or whatever, and some people hate jump scares, but
I loved it because it's for me it's classic horror movie.
yeah, it's definitely
Which-
slasher.
Yeah, which it's not as a film
No,
as a
no.
whole, but you know that I just love the nods. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The nod to Nightmare on Elm Street, like
Yeah, this is. Well, you'll see if we get to do the second one. There'll be much. If it's up to me, it'll be much more along the lines of a slasher.
Bobby, come on.
This kind of thing.
yeah. I think they're really hard to pull off. Now I think there's some very very smart ones.
Yeah,
It Follows, for example.
there you go. Paying off the old song as well.
Yeah, I like it. Gotta use it somewhere, haven't you? It's a good song.
I don't think I need to watch that again for a long time.
Have you, since you saw it in the cinema?
No, that's
No.
the first time.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have.
I feel like that flew by the way.
Yeah, I don't think
For
it
me.
drags.
Yeah.
I don't think it drags, to be honest.
Oh no, not at all. I just mean like even our conversation, like we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this still filming?
Yeah.
Oh. Not that I was going to say anything untoward. But no, I don't know. I think they definitely Giles and definitely succeeded with the pacing of the movie and the edit. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I love a fast, well cut film. There's room for longer films with lots of hyperbole as well, but I think the pacing of that's great. I think horrors sometimes have the danger of like dragging on and lasting for too long. I think it's important in horrors to be quite concise because people are so quick to like dismiss horrors and just be like boring, you know what I mean, and which is just part of the genre, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's so many that like you watch a lot and it's like they spend a lot of time with like a slow build up, which doesn't actually set much up, but it's just like talking heads or whatever, and it's all like long, like wide establishing shots of like mountains or wherever they are, or
barren wilderness.
Yeah, and it's it can be frustrating. I get that.
Yeah,
I thought Saint Maud was slow,
right.
but in the best way, like creeping dread.
I'm excited to watch it.
Really good. My film of the year, apart from Borat.
I've already watched the first hour of Borat so far, but I'm excited to finish it.
Class. Trying to think what other horror movies I've seen this year. Watched a lot. The Mortuary Collection on Shudder. Class, obviously. Host.
I mean, I rewatched it again the other day, and I was like, when I first watched it, I think I messaged you, and I was like, oh my god, it's the best film I've ever seen. Partially because I just spent so much time on Zoom.
I don't think that you've messaged me about Host. You must have messaged someone else.
It was a while ago. You told me to watch it.
Did I?
Yeah.
And you thought
I
it was
think
terrible?
we said we'd do a podcast about it. No, I loved it.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said worst film you've ever seen.
No, best
film.
film.
I was going to say. I do remember that.
I kind of like calmed down and I was like, well, I watched it again the weekend and I was like, it's smart. And again, it had nods to films that I love, like the loft scene, which was just the
Paranormal Activity.
I was going to say Wreck.
Oh, well, that as well.
Yeah, and
but they're not shy of saying where they got their influences from.
Yeah.
Jed, and we had Jed on the podcast, on Giles's podcast.
Yeah, I listened to that. Good.
I'd be interested to know the extent of the script on Host. Jed didn't really say.
Yeah.
And how much was like improv, because he did say there was a lot of improv, and then with that kind of thing, just interesting because obviously we spent like 4 years doing the Dare, and when you're writing a movie that isn't like Host, no disrespect to Host,
a studio.
There's a lot. There's a lot more going on in terms of shots and like the cinematography. I suppose I don't know, like not the cinematography because that's still happening in Host. I just mean like you're not constricted to and it in some ways makes it more difficult when you.
It's a different beast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different animal altogether. So I'd be interested to know. I'd love to see the script for Host and how much of a script there was, or how much was it with just. Which is even more impressive, to be fair, if there wasn't, just to go on and do it.
Yeah.
And edit it in such a way that had all the setups and payoffs and everything.
Yeah. That's one key thing that I pulled out of that was like the setups and payoffs, which you mentioned a lot. That work was smart, I think.
They've got a 3-movie Blue Mouse deal now.
Really? Good on him.
It's just absolutely good on him.
Amazon put out like 4 Blue Mouse films for Halloween over October. I haven't watched a single one yet because
I haven't, to be honest.
I filled up my October with watching Shite Vampire.
I feel like I'm like want to start watching other genres of film now Halloween's over for a bit. Just watch horror like non-stop for probably like a year or maybe longer. Like I might just watch like Mission Impossibles, all of them, or like all the John Wicks again or something. Something that isn't so like. Can't be good for you. I mean, it is supposed to be psychologically good for you to watch horror, but it can't be all the time.
Because of the the imagery that you're taking in.
So I think that I'll probably watch. You know what I'm going to watch when the 4K Lord of the Rings Ultra HD Lord of the Rings trilogy come out.
Yeah.
I'll watch them through December.
Yeah, I've not watched Lord of the Rings for a long time. It's funny you mentioned that Mission Impossible. The last one, I saw the last one at the cinema.
I
And
loved it.
I walked out the cinema and I thought, it was such an epic that I walked out of it thinking, this is why I want to be in this industry, because it was just such a spectacle.
Unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
The where he jumps out of the plane and just.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, and I thought, fucking hell, this is why films are so good, and to get that from a Mission Impossible film is
They've all been great. I mean, obviously, I don't think was it 3 that wasn't, or 2 wasn't quite good.
Yeah, 2 is pretty dodgy. I used to have 2 on VHS, I think, and I just used to watch it all the time. Or someone in my house did, you know what I mean? So I know 2 off by heart, and it's really not very good.
Rogue Nation and Fallout, mint.
Yeah.
Ghost Protocol, mint. Them 3 especially.
They're
Mint.
filming another one recently.
Yeah, I think they're doing the last 2 back to back.
Yeah. Mad. He's off it, Tom Cruise, isn't he? Cool. Right,
On that note, he's off at Tom Cruise, isn't he? He is, to be fair.
Was that quite intense? Was that quite tiring for you?
Yeah, I'm knackered now.
Yeah, I thought it might be. And straight off the bat, you were effectively narrating it, and but it was really insightful for me. So thank you.
That's all right.
I really
then.
enjoyed that, and I hope everyone.
I
does
think
too.
it was completely different as well to the one with Giles and Bart,
Yeah.
because and Julian, so there's 4 of us, so I only got to say probably about 3 things in that. Because
and
3
some quite big personalities there.
Yeah,
as well.
3 big personalities.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much. That everyone, obviously, if you just sat and listened to that and not watched the film, then I don't know how much enjoyment you'll get out of it. But if you did watch the film, then good on you. I hope you enjoyed it, and fingers crossed we'll get a sequel.
Hopefully, I feel like I'm like an old man because my knees been in a funny place. But yeah, hopefully we will. I have no guarantees, but it seems in a good position to have one.
Watch this space. I'm sure we'll see on the internet at some point.
Yes.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Anytime. Loved it.